Welcome back to Some Assembly Required. Today in this lesson we're going to be talking about how to make a tie rod hydraulic cylinder, and we're going to draw all those pieces up and then throw them together in a slider mate so we can learn how that function works in the assembly tab. Stay tuned. So for a slider mate, what we're going to basically be looking at is something that can slide into another part. So what I have here isn't going to be what we're going to be drawing today, but a 3D printed part I have with a hole inside, and I have some mates that we had made for it. This is actually a project one of my students did where they had to measure this block and make some parts, and we'll do that as a video eventually. But basically the pin here slides in to that slot, and same thing over here, we'll be able to slide in and those pieces slide in and out, no problem. So best way to show this in my mind was with a hydraulic cylinder. So if we jump over into this view, you'll see a basic rough outline of what a hydraulic cylinder looks like. I know you guys are used to my prints and my drawings and a bunch of other stuff that I have to follow along with. However, what I wanted to do today was kind of do like a stream of consciousness what if scenario. I'm just drawing stuff off the top of my head. And I know what the parameters are. I know what all these pieces look like. I used to work in a shop where we would actually take these apart and repair hydraulic cylinders. So I got these all the drawings are up here. So I kind of wanted to talk about some of this. So if we look here, this is going to be kind of where we're going to attach. We're going to have to draw a outer sleeve, and then we're going to draw our rod with a piston on the end with a way to hook up. So let's jump in, and you'll see I have nothing drawn. So let's follow along. So I was thinking if we came down kind of from a top up, kind of opposite of a top down view, but having everything based off of that cylinder on the inside. So for starters, we're going to click that top plane, Shift and S on our keyboard to start a sketch, N to normalize, and P to hide those planes. And that P button is going to be very important today, because a lot of what we're going to be drawing is we're basing off the last thing that we drew, and we're going to need to add some more planes. So turning those planes again, P to turn them on, P to turn them off. You just keep kind of on and off as we need. So first thing we're going to do, we're going to circle on that origin, and I'm going to make that, we'll go 5 inches in diameter, and then we're going to make another one that is going to be 2 inches in diameter. And we'll make a rectangle centralized off of that. Normalize that view again, and we'll go ahead and just call it 6 by 6, and we'll go from there. So we drew some basic stuff. We can kind of get a lot of our drawings done in one sketch because everything's kind of based off of the same thing. We will have to add some more stuff later, but what I'm going to do now is do Shift and F. I'm going to round the corners of this rectangle here. And what I want to do with that, I'm going to double click that R25, and I want to make those 1 inch in diameter. Move that dimension out of the way. You know what, let's make them 1/2 inch, 0.5, there we go. On those center points, I'm going to draw a circle on each of those. And on my last one, I'm going to give it a measurement of 0.5. And if I select all of them and press E for equals, did I miss one? There we go. They will all now be that same size, so when we go to move on, we don't have to dimension each one as we go. So that's going to be kind of a cool part. So now what are we going to do? So first thing I want to do is press Shift and E, and right now it thinks it knows what it wants, but what I want to do is press the space bar to delete all that. And what we're going to do is we're going to select both of these circles, okay? And it'll make sense here in a second. So we're going to go to a solid circle. I'm going to say symmetric. Actually, we won't go symmetric on this one. We'll go regular. And then I'm going to go, let's make our sleeve, let's go 12 inches. we'll say okay. So we should have that cylinder at 12 inches, and we'll accept it. We'll turn our sketch back on, and our next thing we're going to do is we're going to shell this thing out. So I want to click the top, and I want to click the bottom, and I want to hollow that thing out. I could have done that here, but what's nice is I like having it in the feature tree with some spots I could change. So like right now I'm going to make that a shell thickness of 0.5, and we have this thing here. Okay, so if I click both sides, that's one easy way to do this. But what I kind of want to show you is I only want that to shell from this side forward, and you'll see why here in a bit. So we have that piece here. I'm going to accept that. Now what we need to do is we're going to take that circle and we're going to actually cut that out. We're going to remove that. We'll go the opposite direction, and we're going to merge with part 1. Because what I want, if we look at this from a section view, if I turn those planes back on, we're going to cut down that using the right plane. I wanted that wall thickness to be the same all the way through, and if I wanted to add that, I would have to done 2 or 3 extrudes to kind of make that happen. So I wanted to be able to do this in a manner that was a lot easier. So I can say okay now. We'll shut off that section view, and you'll see I have that hole there. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take our plate here and our circle there. We're going to extrude that out. However, we don't want to add this. If we take a look up here, I'm going to change that to new. We're going to give this a depth of 2. Enter. And I don't want that going this way. I want that the other way out. So we're kind of giving ourselves a sealing surface. But what I want to do is if we click this starting offset, I can use this to cut away a little bit. So we're going to start off 1 inch, and we're going to go 2 inches in. And right now, again, if I do that section view, you'll see we have some interference. And so what we need to do now is we can use that Boolean tool to kind of help us out. So if I shut off my section view and we come over here to Boolean, I am going to use my subtract, and the tools I'm using are going to be this here, and the target is going to be this block here. So we'll say okay. Now you'll see I have 3 parts in here, and that's because let me see, we'll say okay. We need to hide some parts. So we made an extra ring here, but what I really want is that to be deleted. So I can just select here, and then we'll say delete part, and it'll say okay. Now we'll turn it back on. Now I have that place for that cylinder to go and kind of sit inside. So we shut off part 1. You will see I kind of have a little rib for that to go. Okay. So now we have this piece here. We're all good. Next step would be to draw another cap on the other side. However, I don't really want that cap. I don't need that hole on this other side, because this is where if we look back at our picture, this is where our shaft is going to come out. So we're going to need to make a plunger here in a second. I need to cap this side, but I need to add some like dog ears to be able to pick this thing up and move things around. So what I want to do is I want to roll back to before the Boolean. And you can see that if we shut off part 1, we just have a solid block here. And I want to roll back to before we extruded that hole. And if we look, we're kind of connected in the same spot. So if extrude 3, we don't want that hole there. So I can unselect that hole or reselect. There we go. That's what I'm trying to do. Select that hole there. Then if we come before that rollback bar and we mirror it over, we're going to want to mirror it over this mid plane, but we're going to need to make a plane first. So we'll come here to the plane. I'm going to shut off part 2. We'll pick this face and this face, and now I have a plane to split through. Now I can select mirror, and I'm going to mirror in the entity. So the entity I want to mirror is going to be part 2. We're going to mirror it over this plane that we just made, and we're going to say new part, turn all our parts back on, and we'll say okay. Now if we shut all our parts off and select that face, I can have it extrude, but I'm going to remove it, and I only want to remove it symmetrical. We'll say through all, but I don't want it to merge with this part. I only want it to merge with part 2 here. So then we'll say okay. If I scroll down to delete part, if we look at this boolean, well, now I also want it to target this part as well. And so we can say okay. And when we go into delete part, that one's still going to delete that part, but now we need to be able to delete this part over here as well. So some other things we could do, if I click this, it would delete the whole part. So we don't want to do that. But what we do want to do is, I'm going to show you this delete face. I can click here and here, and we can allow that to heal, and now we have that piece gone. So we kind of went a backwards way of making it, but I wanted to show as many features as I could. So we now have a block that is, let's take some measurements, from end to end. If we select right, is 14 inches. So now what we're going to do, I want a shaft to go through, so we're going to draw some those tie rods. I want them to go through at least 14 because that's the parallel distance if we look down here in the bottom. But I also want it to stick out an inch on both sides, so we're going to need to make 16 inches. So if we can start on this side. We'll draw a sketch, and to normalize. And what's nice is I already have everything drawn, so I don't need to draw any new circles. I can just use these circles, select them all, press the letter U on my keyboard, Shift and E, and now it's going to make these 4 rods for me. And today we're not actually going to be putting threads on them or anything, or putting nuts and whatnot, but we'll kind of show some things that we can do. So I need them to be at least 16, but we're going to draw half of it and then mirror it. So I am going to start out 1 inch this way. So we'll say a starting offset of 1 inch. We want to flip the direction there. Starting offset 1 inch. And how far are we going to go? We're going to go 8 inches, but we need it to go 8 inches that way. So you'll see it goes right up to our plane. Again, I could say, instead of blind, I could say up to face, and then I could pick that plane. But we wanted them to be new features there. So if we ever to change the length, this is the way to do it, because it's always going to be halfway of the midpoint of what we already have drawn. So we'll go ahead and accept that. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to draw another sketch on top of these, and this time we are going to offset each circle. So offset by 1/4 inches is the default. So we'll offset again here, say okay, enter, offset, say okay, enter, offset, here, okay. And basically what we're doing is now we're going to press Shift and E. We'll go down the other direction, and we're going to add, but we're going to only merge with these rods here. So we're making kind of some heads on these bolts so they don't go all the way through. Imagine we had some nuts on the end. They would work to keep them from falling apart. And now the next thing we're going to do, I want to mirror all of these parts. So we're going to mirror this part, this part, this part, and this part over that plane that we made. And we'll say add, merge with that, 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 and that. And that'll allow that to be individual rods, which obviously in the real world we would never be able to make this, but for sake of time I'm not gonna draw all of the nuts and the hardware and everything. You get the idea. This is just what would hold it together, and we would go like that. So now that we have our rods, we have our two plates, we have our barrel, we need to come inside here. We'll do a section view again. I need to draw a piston inside here. So what's going to be cool is I'm going to teach you guys how to do the revolve tool with it. So we're going to draw a sketch on the right plane, which is right in the middle of all this. And I'm just eyeballing. We don't have to do it exactly perfect because there's not actually a real cylinder being made here. But we're going to draw a line down the center. We'll go about there. We'll draw another line that we're going to say to coincide with that bottom. So we're going to click that line and coincide those two. I'm going to give this a dimension. And we'll say I want 2 inches away from the bottom of that cylinder. And then from here, I'm going to we'll draw out. We'll come down. I'm going to add a circle here so we can kind of add some, maybe we'll add a O-ring. Let's use that circle here, or that line there, and we'll make that be tangent there. We're going to draw that all the way through so we can draw that in 2 pieces. And yeah, that should be good. I'll shrink that down a little bit. Draw this back to here. And then draw this all the way back. And we'll come out even further. So we'll go to there. And we're going to tell this that this needs to be pull up and rotate a little bit. The dimension of this line to that point. Let me see, normal. Need that line to come up. Use. There we go. The dimension from here to here, we got 0.66 right now. Let's see what 0.125 looks like. We'll just go 0.1. 0.1. There we go. So I have this shape now, and what we're going to do is we're going to say that I want the shaft from here to here. Let's make it 20 inches long. Oh. Before we do that, let's set these because it's going to yell. So I want that to be, we'll go 1 inch there. So that can be 0.5. And we're kind of just eyeballing stuff at this point. We'll give that a dimension of 0.25 and change that 15 to a 20. So after we have that, I'm gonna click these two together. A couple of things you can do real quick trick. Click that. I know I need that to be horizontal, so we'll press H, and because those are all tied together, it brought it down, and now we have a nice rectangle there. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the revolve tool, and we're going to revolve this without that cutout around this spot here, and we're making ourselves a piston. So we'll say new, and we're good there. And we could also turn that sketch back on and bring in this one. We'll revolve it around that same axis, and now we have a O-ring to go around it as well. So little overkill for what we're doing today, but just to show, even with no dimensions, you can still kind of draw stuff up and get the practice down. So I was just kind of eyeballing, using stuff as I went, adding dimensions, and going from there. So if I shut this section view off, you'll see we have a hydraulic cylinder, but we don't really have a way to connect it to anything. So my next step, I'm going to draw here, Shift and S, and I'm going to draw a dog ear. So I'll draw a circle from the center point and an eyeball about there. We'll call it a 1 inch, and then we'll do another one around it that is 2 inches. We'll give a dimension from here to here, let's say 3 inches out, and we can draw that line here, because another way you could do this is by doing the slot tool and telling it a slot of 3. So we have some space there. Now we can say 2. There we go. We'll do a slot of 2. I didn't press escape, so we'll do a slot of here at 2. Accept it. We'll extrude it. And what's nice is I don't need to trim all that stuff. I can just flip the direction, merge with this top piece, and we're going to make that, we'll go 2 inches there. No, we'll go 1.5, 1.5. And I'm like, you know what, that looks a little weak, so I can jump back into my sketch 5. And you know what, let's make that slot, let's make it 3. So change this to 3. Click this final button, see what it would look like. And yeah, it looks a little bit better. So we'll say okay. But when I did that extrude, I wanted this to actually go with it. So we had that pin there accordingly. So now I could come in and mirror, switch this to feature mirror over this feature we're going to mirror is extrude 7 over the mirror plane of right there. We'll click reapply features. We have our dog ears, so we could throw a pin in there. Last thing we're going to do is we're going to come in here and we're going to select the right plane. I'm going to draw a sketch, and on that right plane I'm going to just draw another little kind of eye type thing. So we'll draw a rectangle. We'll draw a rectangle that needs to be 3. That needs to be 1, and that, yeah, that'll work. We'll say from here to the end we want to be 4. And I can extrude that. We'll go symmetrical, and if we make that 2, we'll say okay. We have our piece that can be used. This could be rotated, you could do whatever. But we have our hydraulic cylinder in a kind of unorthodox way with no measurements, but again, it's all about the skill and how you're going to actually use it and practice it. So now that we have all our pieces, we can switch over into our assembly tab. So if you come down here, we'll click assembly. It'll bring us in here. I guess I can delete all the stuff I had in here before. This is what it would look like as your assembly. So we're going to click insert, and I'm going to insert all of Part Studio 1, and I'm just going to let it sit. So I think what I want to do is I want to move all these parts. So we'll move the piston, we'll move all these pieces out of the way, and we'll move the cap, we'll move there, we'll move that other one, and I want this tube, our cylinder, to actually be fitted to that bottom. So also going to move that O-ring out. Forgot that guy was in there. So now if I try to move anything, remember that cylinder in the middle is going to be fixed. That's what we want. Everything's going to be based around that. Okay, so we're going to move kind of fast with some of these fixed mates, but we're here for the slider mate. So let's add our O-ring. So we're going to do a fastened mate. We're going to select the center of that, and we're going to come here, and we are going to come to the center of our boss there. We'll say OK. That is now fastened. That moves together as one. So we have our plunger with our O-ring attached. So our next step, I'm going to fasten this bottom. So we'll fasten here, the front of that face to the bottom of this face, and we'll say OK. Next, I want to add these, and it doesn't really matter because this is not actually going to be built, but it'll show you kind of what we're dealing with and how you could make this, and if you were to throw stuff in the real world, what it kind of would do. So we're going to click the top of this, or the underside of this, and we'll go, if it's getting wonky on you, remember you hold shift, click there, we'll say OK. So we'll have one of those again here, we'll grab there, put these here. If I drew these without a head on both sides, we could have shown these as sliders too, but I just wanted to show you mostly with the piston. So we'll go here, we'll grab this bottom one, go from there to here, and last but not least, we'll grab this guy, and we will go to there. So we have all our deals put in. I'm going to put this cap on last, and what's cool about this cap is we can kind of rotate it if we don't base it off of these holes. I'll show you how to do that here in a second. But what we need to do now is this slider mate. So we're going to click slider, and it's going to ask me for a mate connector. So I want to go the center of this. So I have the very top of this shaft, I have the center, and I have the bottom. I think I want to go with the bottom here. So we'll select there, and this is where it's going to get kind of funky. So I'm going to shut off some parts so we can see. So not part 8, we're going to shut off 7, 6, 5, and 4, and we'll also shut off, if you hover over it, it'll tell you we're going to shut off part 3 because we need to get in here to this spot right here. So if I come in here and select this cylinder, but I come to the back of it right here, let me turn on this section view really quick. to show you I want to go from there. So let's pick slider. Here we go. I want to be able to see my part actually going through that section. So I'm there, the plunger is right up against that end. So this is where we're going to do our offsets, and we're going to do some limits. So if we offset this, and if we look at that from the right, my Z is going to be up. So when I do this, I kind of just mess with it a little bit. So if I offset an inch, that's going to push that way. So we don't want to offset, we want to limit. So our Z is moving. So my Z minimum, if I set that to 1, let's see what happens. It's going the opposite way. So we need to limit this to negative like 15. Let's try negative 10. And you can press play and see what it's doing. So it's going to show me that line as I do that, and it's going to go from end to end. So if I do negative 10 and negative 1, and you'll see that line, it's going to show me the extents of where that can go, where that can actually go to. So if we play it, it'll move up and down. And yeah, I know that right now that O-ring's not moving with it. Once we get out of this, it'll be in it. So we'll go 10, negative 10 and 1. That looks like a good realistic deal, because if we have that cap on, we're going to have some place for fluid to go. So we'll say okay. Let's go ahead and turn all our parts back on. We'll say show all, and we'll shut off our shaded view, our section view. There we go. And we can hide all our mates. I don't need to see the mate connectors. So we'll shut those off, hide those. It's not letting me. Oh, there we go. All right. So if we look here now and we were to play a simulation, I'm actually going to hide this cylinder so we can see where it kind of would have existed. But if I come down here to this slider mate and I say animate, right click and animate, there we go. Get this oriented a little bit. When we say play, you'll see it's moving at 300 steps. And let's do reciprocate. So we're seeing that actually move the way we want that to. So that's kind of how I would go about doing it. Last thing I wanted to show you was how to add this back piece on. And the reason I wanted to show it to you this way, we'll do a fastened mate, and we're going to go from the center right here. Okay. A couple of things to know. I just realized when I moved this, we got these humps right here. So we can go actually clean those up, and I can show you how to do that. Actually, let's do that right now. So if we jump back over in our part studio, we know we have an issue with this part because we didn't see it because it was hidden before. Couple quick ways to do it is we know that came from an extrude. So if we go back to that extrude where we made that, would have been extrude 3, maybe extrude 2. I went back too far. There we go, extrude 7. So instead of, I can just delete that piece and then we'll go there. That should fix everything. We come back into our assembly and you'll see now those pieces are gone. So cool way to do that. Really simple. Again, you could have done the delete face option too. But for what we're going to do, we're going to do this fasten mate. I want to go based off of this center point. And I want to come here and go like so. So it's still going to operate the way we want it to, but the reason I chose to go off of that is because now if I go to rotate this thing, I can move the direction that my dog ears would actually be sitting. So if you're actually making something like this, instead of rotating it each time and reapplying and refastening, a real quick way to change some orientations is here. The problem with doing this is that you might end up making it go the wrong way if there's other relationships with it. If I had a pin in there and then something else was attached, it might bend up and, you know, jackknife essentially. But yeah, so this is our finished cylinder. Let's animate that again. We'll do slider, animate, say okay. And we see our piston is moving throughout that. So let's go along the cutaway. There we go. So we can see our part moving, and we can see that cutaway, and that piston is stopping right before the end and pushing the fluid back up the other way. Now, the only problem with this design is there's not actually any way for fluid to move anywhere. So this is a really cool proof of concept. But what I would do, if we come back over here, maybe draw from like this plane, draw a circle back here, we'll go like 0.5 and 0.25, and then again, right, we can mirror that over, mirror over this plane, bring those in. We'll extrude both of those out, but we'll go the other way until they touch that part. We'll attach them. We'll turn our sketch back on, and this time we're going to cut select that circle and that circle. We'll extrude, we'll remove, and we can kind of just drag this one down and only merge with part one. We come back over to our assembly, and you'll see we have those now on. So let's fix our section view, and instead of going from that side, let's go from this plane here. There we go. So now if we animate that slider, animate, we'll say play, we could see that if there was fluid on this side, it would get forced out of this tube. If we pushed, because we're pushing fluid here, if I push fluid back, it's going to go back the other way. So messing with those limits would have to change things, right? I don't think we want those going past that. So maybe let's make it -9. Let's see what that does. -8 and maybe -2. So we can see now it's going to come down here and it's going to stop before it gets to the going past that plunger, and it's going to do it again before it gets past that one. So you only have so much degree of reach, but what's cool is you can go back in and edit it and make it however you want. So hopefully you guys learned a lot on this one. Again, if we were to make this, we would actually, you know, throw some real measurements at it, but I kind of wanted to show, like I said, a frame of like a stream of consciousness, or just how I kind of make workflows, and then how I go back in and add dimensions and stuff later. So like I said, hopefully we learned something. I'm hoping that these mates are making more sense. For me, when I first started, I know they were really, really hard to do assemblies, and I just mated everything together. And then I was like, no, these things are supposed to rotate. Let's see how they would make it work. So if you got any ideas for what we should do for some more assemblies, let me know in the comments. I'm looking here. It looks like we have planar mate coming up next week. So kind of simple, and then followed by a cylindrical mate. So eventually we'll get to the point where we can make my little grabber tool. And like right now I'm looking at some planar mates here. I know there's some cylindrical mates, because yeah, these bolts kind of go in these holes, but they're not fastened to the hole, they're fastened to the bolt. So to the nut rather. So thank you guys for tuning in. If you want some printouts or something for this, let me know. I kind of was thinking of this more as like a sub day, like follow along type thing. Pause the video as you go, do what I did, pause, do what I did, run, right, you get what I'm saying? So if you want some printouts though, let me know in the comments and I'll work on something. But I think this one was kind of fun. I was just kind of shooting in the dark and seeing what we could come up with. So that's going to do it for us. I will see you guys next week. Take care.